Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the Maddog and Pino NFL Review. Two drinking buddies shooting the shit about the NFL.
How you doing tonight, Pino?
Pino's all right. Even the losers get lucky sometime.
They watch the games, break it down for you, and deliver all you need to know from the weekend's action.
That means there were 16 games,
Yeah.
right? So half of them lost, right?
Yeah.
So 32 divided by 2, but
60.
So now 14 teams have a loss.
What?
Die-hard fan? You'll get all the in-depth analysis behind the scores.
Devontae Adams had 175 yards last week. Well, the other guy, Nico Collins, had 107 yards this week.
Check out the big brain on Brett.
Or just a fan of the NFL spectacle? You'll get all the quirks, follies, and absurd moments from each weekend's action.
If he took a shotgun snap, by the time he caught it, he could smell the Starbucks on Micah Parsons' breath.
We got the shit kicked out of us from the moment they walked out of the tunnel.
So, join us now for the insights, laughs, and chaos that is the Maddog and Pino NFL Review. Now your hosts...
Hey, everybody. I'm Maddog. I'm here with Pino, and welcome to the Maddog and Pino NFL Review for the Divisional round. How you doing tonight, Pino?
I'm doing great here in Podcast City in Hermosa Beach. Get some energy coming out this motherfucker tonight.
Exactly, man. I have to apologize for my opening last week. I was very disappointed when I went to the edit, but hopefully this edit will be much more energetic and get you guys fired up to hear all about the division round.
Yeah, we couldn't find Phil Spector to post produce it for us. I think, is he in jail or dead? I don't even know. But yeah, no, doing well. Good games this past weekend. We're bringing the energy. We're coming up on championship weekend.
Exactly.
Right? 2 games that should be really good, and we got some coaching news as well today.
Exactly.
Good thing we missed yesterday.
So that's a good place to start. At the end of the season, we kind of talk about the coaching carousel every week. And I was going to go through. It's kind of been slow moving this year. The Raiders did what I think we all believe to be the right thing by bringing back AP to be their coach. Certainly the players were all on board with that.
There would have been a mutiny.
Yeah.
Not only within the Raiders organization. There's only one Raiders organization.
That's as far as I know.
I didn't need to go plural there. And I think around the country as well, like every ex-player analyst that's on any show.
Yeah, don't make the same mistake again.
Right. They were all in that deal.
And then we can move on to the other coaches in a second. But the Raiders also had a GM opening, and they hired Telesco
Tommy Telesco
from the Chargers. And that there's 2 interesting things I found out there. Telesco's only fucking 51 years old, so he's been he's been the Chargers GM since 2013. I'm like, Jesus.
And you know what? He's worked with like everybody.
Yeah.
Like I heard, I was listening to I don't know what I was listening to yesterday, kind of giving his background. Like he's worked with Bill Polian.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's been in the NFL, I guess, since he was 13.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to do the math too, and so
well, you know how good I am at the math.
And you know what? At first, when I heard they were interviewing him, I'm like, good for Mark Davis. He's going to get as much information as he can, but there's no way they're going to hire Telesco. But
he's only been out of work for a month.
I know, but they did. And when you think about it and reflect on it a little bit, it's not like the roster there wasn't good. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he actually did his job. If he was responsible for hiring the coach, maybe it's good that they put him in after they hired AP.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because that'll lead into where we go next. But that roster, the only problem with that roster is, what did I hear today? They're like $44 million over the cap.com.
Yeah, they got some serious.
And I think they still Khalil Mack needs a contract. Bosa is going to need a contract. So they're he's going to have to manage that roster. There's going to be a lot of restructuring going on in them.
Exactly. So I'll touch the other one real quick. The Titans hired Brian Callahan, the Cincy OC, which again is kind of interesting because he wasn't even calling the plays in Cincinnati. So that's a pretty major step up from him. You'd think he'd go to another team to be OC and call plays and then get a head coaching job.
Right, kind of like what they made Eric Bieniemy do. Like he didn't. Yeah. Did he even get an interview this quote unquote sequel?
I guess technically he's not out of a job yet. I guess I don't know. But,
Right. Well, they don't have a coach yet either, right?
exactly.
They have their GM.
They do have their GM.
But I like that it's this cycle now. That's what they call it. Like, are all the new catchphrases. Like it's the cycle. But who's Callahan? What's his name?
Brian.
Brian. Is he related to Bill Callahan, the old I think he was the Raiders coach.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. Probably, but
he's got to be right because there's so much nepotism in the NFL.
Exactly. So then there's still the following openings: Atlanta, Seattle, Washington, Carolina, and until this morning, or really a couple hours ago, the Chargers.
You just got really technical. Seattle, Washington. Like, oh, you mean Washington Commanders?
Exactly. And then the big news: Jim Harbaugh. I don't know how big a surprise it is, but it's still big news. He's leaving Michigan and going to be the Chargers coach. So. Again, I don't think it's a surprise. I think everyone thought that was probably the most likely landing spot for him, but still, it's now official, man.
It made the most sense for him, right? Because of that roster.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have a quarterback who's literally just starting his prime.
Like a coach away from doing big things.
And you look at his record, man. It's 3 straight NFC championship games before he pissed off everyone in San Francisco.
Exactly.
Now he's pissed off everyone in Michigan.
Yeah, it's fighting all those NCAA investigations. Oh well. But I don't like Pete Carroll when he was like, "Fucking, I'm getting out of here, man."
Right, but I think like the
when he was at USC, to be clear. But
I think what's their name? The Spanoses. They had to make this hire, right? Because they were getting the perception is they don't spend money, they're cheap,
right?
But it just puts them on the like. He'll go toe-to-toe with McVay for the LA market, right? Now, whether any more Charger fans shows up to the game, but
you got to assume they'll be coming out of the woodwork at this point, especially if they get good,
You know what a bandwagon town this is. They start winning.
Exactly. So that's, I don't know, big news and probably the right hire for them. I mean, we'll see, but
I assume they went through the whole Rooney Rule deal. Like, remember last week we were trying to figure out why it was so slow and like, do they have to interview in person and all that kind of shit. So I assume they did all that.
They had to have,
right?
And maybe that's why it took a little while, because he did interview, at least had his first interview over a week ago. So I mean, maybe that's why it took a little while.
I also think he probably thought, I've got these guys by the balls.
Yeah, probably negotiated like a motherfucker.
Like the GM is some guy that he like.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, he
can control.
Yeah, it's certainly someone he put on a short list to say, if you hire him, I may still come.
So even though he doesn't, and that's a Rooney Rule hire. Like they got a minority GM, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good for them. And he wanted somebody that says like, here's who's on the roster, here's who's off the roster,
right?
Here's who we're drafting.
Yeah,
probably. Exactly. I wonder how many Michigan guys he's going to draft. Because I think 20 of them are coming out.
I guarantee you would have drafted JJ McCarthy, other than the fact that they have Justin Herbert.
Yeah, so. Maybe he drafts him and trades Herbert.
Exactly.
G-Man will give up some picks.
All right. So on the other news, or non-news actually, on the coaching front, was Atlanta's now interviewed Belichick twice. And you got to assume if they wanted him, the deal would have been already done. But they have actually come out and said, we're still interviewing people. So,
you know what's interesting about that, dude? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I read
that was it.
Like I read that in the Athletic that so while Artie Blank, and I'm not saying Artie Blank like to hide an expletive, that's his last name, the owner, right? Like he's a pro. I'm doing that for courtesy of the he's like a pro Belichick guy. Like he's. What I've read is he would hire him, but there's some, front office, other people involved with the Falcons, higher ups that have a problem with Belichick, which kind of is interesting because I guess that shows what a conciliatory owner he is. Because most owners would be like, if it was David Tepper, he'd be like, "Fuck you, I'm hiring him."
Exactly. So,
and then he'd throw a drink at the guy.
But you gotta imagine that Belichick is speaking of negotiating, he's probably like, I get full control, but he is 72 years old. Maybe you don't want to give him full control again. You know what I mean?
And considering how their drafts have been, like they really haven't drafted anybody of note.
Right. Well, obviously the quarterback there is a big question mark, no matter who's coaching. But anyway, I found it weird that he's been sitting out there, and as far as I can tell, he's not interviewing anywhere else.
Right, like he's put all his eggs in that basket. Yeah. And the other one, dude, where it's gone really quiet, you have heard nothing about it, is what's his name? Vrabel.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, he was.
I mean, he's a good coach.
He was headed to Seattle, but that was just people speculating.
And now Dan Quinn's interviewed there.
Yeah,
and he's supposedly the favorite.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he has ties to Seattle as well, but anyway, so the carousel keeps spinning. I did find it interesting that there's a guy's name, speaking of the Rooney Rule, that has not come up in interviews, and by any real resume standpoint, he probably should. He's a former NFL coach, had a great year as a defense coordinator for the Vikings. Of course, I'm talking about Brian Flores,
right?
And I think the NFL is kind of proving or maybe they're proving a different point. Maybe there's now going to be a collusion lawsuit on top.
Right? I'm sure there will be. Because even Leslie Frazier, is he getting any interviews?
He's getting interviews. So, and Brian Flores, again, you look at what he did with the Vikings defense this year, and he just didn't get an interview. He's a former head coach and obviously a great defense coordinator.
He must have really pissed people off in Miami.
Obviously, or just in the ownership group in general. But anyway, I just found it interesting. Like compare him to Raheem Morris, the Rams defense coordinator. Raheem Morris had. He was an interim coach for the Falcons a few years ago. I don't think actually no, he was a head coach.
He was a head coach at Tampa Bay
right, too. Yeah. So he's getting interviews. So I don't know. I thought it interesting in the context of he's also suing the NFL and not getting a coach. So.
Is that a coinky-dink?
Exactly. I don't believe so.
Who's going to end up coaching the Redskins? And I decided this weekend as I was watching the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I am going to call them the Redskins because if they can't be the Redskins, the Chiefs shouldn't be able to be the Chiefs.
I agree, and they shouldn't be able to do the tomahawk.
Right, and they got and they're banging the drum and all that kind of shit. Like it makes no sense to me.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Other than everybody hated Dan Snyder.
Exactly. Well, that problem solved.
And if they're not going to be the Redskins, then they just need to go back to the Washington football team.
I totally agree with that. But if you're trying to change the culture, one way would be to change the name, or at least one some symbol of that would be. And then there's a whole bunch of coordinators that are moving around.
Defensive coordinators are dropping like flies.
Yeah. So, and including again, I think today's news, Vic Fangio
after 1 year
got dropped by Miami, which is pretty interesting. And now he's in theory going to Philadelphia, who is kind of a mess right now. I didn't hear any of the press conference, but apparently Sirianni and what's the
Jeff Lurie?
No, the Douglas.
Howie Rosen.
Howie Rosen. I always confuse him with the Rosen guy. But anyway, they had a press conference today, but they made him fire both his coordinators, and he's still coach. But now they're probably making him hire who they
now he has zero power.
Exactly. So
and now this is second off season. They're getting two new coordinators.
I know. So it's I don't know, interesting times in Philadelphia.
I'm really surprised we're not talking about that opening.
What
I was convinced last week he was going to get
same here. I was like, all right, we've got another one, and that would be an interesting job.
Yeah.
But all right, so that's kind of the coaching carousel. I had a New Year's resolution that I wasn't going to get sucked into mock drafts and shit for like 6 months after the season was over. First one came out and I read every fucking.
I always say like I'm not paying attention, but like when I see it, like, hey, here's Sando, the guy. You read The Athletic, right?
I read The Athletic.
I think Sando's like the NFL guy, and I always read out. You know who's a great journalist relative to the NFL, and when he's interviewed is Albert Breer. Have you ever seen him or read his stuff?
No.
He's in Sports.
Read his stuff.
Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
He's really good, but like I saw his mock draft come, or one of their mock drafts come. I'm like, I gotta look. It's like when you're a kid, you don't want to be surprised. You want to be surprised what Santa's going to bring,
exactly.
But you know where the shit is in the closet.
Looking under the bed.
I'm down in the basement looking at under the pool table. I know it's there. Looking for that red rifle.
So that's kind of what I had for opening comments. We only have a few games, so we can get into them in some detail. But you want to throw anything out there?
Yeah, I got a couple more. So on Sunday, right? So NBC had the Detroit Tampa game.
Yeah.
Which like I thought it's an NFC.
I think that's all. That shit's all.
That happened like 3 years ago. Anyhow,
but still confusing to me. Like
there had to be
when Tony Romo is doing a freaking NFC game. I'm like, wait a minute, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry, other way around.
So their pregame show, which I was bored, so I had it on.
Yeah.
There are now like 19 people on that NBC pregame show. Like they go to blocks of here's 6,
Exactly.
here's 4 more. Oh, then we got 5.
When they're picking the games, it literally takes them like 8 minutes.
Right, they finish up with that, and you talk about nepotism.
Yeah,
that Jax Collinsworth
I know, man.
being on that show. Yeah, he sounds like his dad. And then the other thing, I don't know if they play. I missed it if they did, but I've been meaning to bring this up all year. The waiting all day for Sunday night.
Yeah.
And I was going to say Taylor Swift singing that song, but I think that's Carrie Underwood.
It is Carrie Underwood. Yeah.
So she's rocking it out, singing in front of the stage, and then all of a sudden she's on the kit.
Yeah.
Does she really play drums?
No.
Yeah. I just want to check that out. I think she's even spinning the sticks. That must be AI.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
My other opening, the Hot Flash commercial showed it at least during the Detroit game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It came on.
It was on all weekend long. I still don't get that one at all, man.
Still a head scratcher. And then another more terminology that we got to over-engineer everything. There's sidelines don't exist any longer. They're boundaries.
Okay.
It's the boundary. It's not the sideline. It's the boundary. All right. Let's just reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Every week.
Get bored.
And then what happened to the unspoken rule? Maybe we brought this up last week and I don't remember. But when you're receiving a punt, you put your heels.
Oh no, we were talking about this when we were watching games on
okay,
Saturday.
is that when we talked about it? You put your heels in the 10-yard line, and if it goes over your head, you let it go. These guys are fair catching shit on the 3-yard line for the last 2 years.
I totally don't get it because it's just like what the odds of something bad going on relatively good at that point are. I don't know.
Well, even if it's good, it's bad because you're getting the ball at the 3.
That's what I mean.
I mean, if you let it go,
right.
It could, all right, maybe it'll roll dead at the 1.
Exactly. But
right? What are the odds of that happening? It's more likely that it's going into the end zone.
Yeah, I agree. They seem to fair catch everything now. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And it doesn't matter where on the field.
Okay. So
that's all I had, high level stuff.
All right. So let's get into the games.
One more. So, I mean, I watch ESPN less and less. But it's on like NFL primetime, right? You know that one like voiceover guy, like the announcer of what show is coming up, NFL primetime or NFL Insiders, who sounds like he has like that voice box, because they took his. I'm like, fuck, anybody can get a voiceover gig.
Yeah, we turned that guy down for our
right. We got Carrie Underwood, as you heard.
Oh man.
All right, let's roll into it.
So divisional round games, that means we have only 4 games to focus on this week. And you can tell, like, playoff football is different than regular season, obviously different than preseason, and the intensity rate, is raises up. And then, a lot of these games can come down to, one play here or there. I guess you can say that about everything, but it just seems to be like magnified in the division round. So anyway, I get, as a football fan, you kind of get excited for that, intensity and like watching games that are back and forth and so forth. And we got some of that this week, and it did not happen really in the first game. So the Texans went into Baltimore and got beat 34-10. The first half of this game was close. It was 10-10
at halftime.
10-10 at halftime. Lamar Jackson, I think they got the ball first. I can't remember, but the first drive they had it, they drove all the way down the field, and you're like, uh-oh. And then C.J. Stroud, who didn't have his best game by far, but didn't turn the ball over.
Right.
Didn't take a sack, so it was kind of like, he in theory kept him in the game, but at least in the first half, and they got the benefit of a special teams touchdown.
Yeah, they got a punt return to make it 10. That's what made it 10-10. Right?
And what I kind of forgot until I kind of went back and reflected on the game, the Texans defense in the second quarter was sacking Lamar Jackson every play, it seemed. So at halftime, I'm like, wow, the Texans might actually have a chance to pull this off. And then Lamar Jackson kind of turned into Lamar Jackson. Ravens did what they always do, which is wear people down in the running game. They ended up with 229 yard rushing against the Texans, who had 38. So and part of that's the script and the way the game got out of hand. But it's impressive to watch when they just. But dude,
you can't run the ball in that Baltimore defense. Yeah, they got some dudes.
Yeah, they do. And again, the script got in the way where they were down by 2 touchdowns. They had to keep moving. But But I was still, listen, I was impressed with the Texans all season long. I was impressed with CJ Stroud all season long. We always joke about schedules, but they're way ahead of schedule to win a playoff game this year. So I think the Texans are in good shape. Obviously,
Future looks bright for them.
And the Ravens are hosting Baltimore's hosting the AFC Championship game. I thought this was interesting for the first time in 50 years. And I think Burt Jones was quarterback then.
Oh, really? Yeah. It was probably that game against Oakland where Dave Casper caught that. That might have been an AFC Championship game. That ball over his head at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah.
Like he was in the he was running on the dirt, and they still had the dirt out there. Like the infield. The infield dirt was still out there.
Even in January.
It was January.
That is so funny but true. Holy crap.
Urshay must have been partying. And he forgot to call the grounds crew and say, like, put some sound up on them. The baseball season's been over since October. But you remember that catch? That was a great catch.
Yeah, it was a great catch.
And that was Snake Stabler was the quarterback, right?
That's right. So that was the last time the
50 years.
The city of Baltimore, and obviously it wasn't the Colts because they're now in Indianapolis and so forth and so on. But the city of Baltimore hasn't hosted an AFC Championship game in 50 years. And a little side anecdote, Texans are the only team who have never played in an AFC Championship game.
Really?
Yeah. Only current franchises never played in
I guess
AFC
that makes sense.
Actually, in an
Wait, did
AFC,
the Oilers play in that?
Oh, yeah.
But that's the same team. Oh, no, the Oilers are the Ravens. You corrected me on this Saturday.
Exactly.
And what did I tell you 5 weeks ago? How confused I was?
You continue to be confused.
I still, I mean, I know I don't have all the fries required to make it a happy meal, but I'm not that bad. But it still perplexes me.
So I just want to continue down this LJ train a little bit because listen, I don't like the Ravens. They're in my division. I kind of don't like to see them do well, et cetera, et cetera. But I've become a closet. Maybe I'm out of the closet now in terms of being a fan of Lamar Jackson. And he had 2 running touchdowns, 2 throwing touchdowns, 100-yard rushing, and 100 passing rating all in the same game, which has never happened.
Right.
Probably will never happen again unless he does it again.
In a playoff game.
So just unbelievable. And I don't, obviously they're going to go play the Chiefs next week, and we'll get into next weekend's games, but it's hard, and the Chiefs haven't seen him in 3 years, so it's just going to be hard for them to like realize what that guy can do, and by the time they do, it may be too late. But,
right, because they ran the ball this week, they may not be able to do that.
Right.
So that changes a lot of things.
Yeah, fair point.
But Baltimore has made a lot of progress in 50 years. Not only do you not see the infield, but they got that fake brick going around the stadium on the wall behind the benches and stuff, and then the fake brick around the stanchion, as it were.
Unbelievable. So I don't know. That's all I really had to say about that game.
Yeah, because that game, there was I don't think there's other than Baltimore dominated. Lamar's healthy, which he hasn't been in the last 3 years. He'll win another MVP, and this weekend will tell a lot.
Yeah, we'll see. So that was the least entertaining game of the weekend, I would say. So let's go to the Saturday afternoon's game. The Packers went into a very rainy, what do they call that park? Santa Clara. I know it's in Santa Clara, but it's not Candlestick. What the fuck is it?
I don't know. It's some
the Santa Clara
high tech kind of deal.
The park in Santa Clara,
right?
But,
yeah, let's just call it that. It's called the new Candlestick.
Okay,
in Santa Clara.
And the Niners won 24-21. And I think this is one of the games where you're like, how did the Niners win? You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
It's like the Packers seemingly did everything right until they did enough wrong to lose. You know what I mean? That's the way it felt when you think back on that game, because the Packers came out in their first 3 drives and did exactly what they did against the Cowboys, except for a score.
Right.
They drove the ball down the field. Their first 3 drives got in the red zone. They only got 2 field goals and then turned it over on downs because Jordan Love doesn't learn how to run a quarterback sneak yet. So,
right.
So instead of being up 21,
I'll have Sirianni teach him next year.
Exactly. Instead of being up 21-0 like they were last week in Dallas, it's 6-0, and then the 49ers score, and it's 7-6 or whatever. But then the Packers kept, like, I thought they would start folding when they didn't score, and but they didn't. Aaron Jones is healthy, and we talked about that last week, and they ran the ball pretty easily on the 49ers,
which is surprising.
Yeah,
because that, like, running the ball against that defense has nothing to do with Debo or Lido.
right.
Boss Skaggs' boy getting hurt. Debo. Oh.
And then coming out of halftime, it was 7-6 at halftime. Jordan Love threw 2 touchdown passes in the second half, and they got a 2-point conversion. I forget how. I think McCaffrey scored. I don't know, but it was 21-14 at the end of the third. And again, you're kind of thinking, all right, the Packers kind of took their best. The Packers took their best punch. They're going to be able to hold on, in part because the 49ers have, I shouldn't say never, this year never had a fourth quarter comeback.
They're not a good come from behind team.
And so you're kind of thinking that might be the case again. But then, special teams kind of came back to haunt the Packers again. Jordan Love turned into a rookie quarterback or whatever, first-year starter at the most inopportune time. But anyway, so the Moody kicked the field goal. It was 21-17. Green Bay drove down the field, had a chance to get their own field goal, missed it. So, which wasn't the first time that.
Is that the 2 weeks in a row he's missed the kick?
Yeah, Carlson's had some challenges all year.
There'll be a new kicker in there next year.
Exactly. And then McCaffrey scores 24-21. Packers get the ball back, and then Jordan Love, again, who's had an amazing season. There was only 4 quarterbacks who threw 30 touchdown passes this year.
Right.
He's one of them, and made one of the ugliest throws certainly he's made all year.
He broke that unspoken. We talked about the unspoken rule about standing on the 10, put your heels on the 10, and then catch a punt.
Right.
Like, don't scramble and just chuck it into the middle of the field.
Exactly.
And that's what he did. The interesting thing, dude, is that, their defense, if they could have got a stop on that McCaffrey touchdown drive, they probably win the game.
Yeah, I think
right?
so.
And I think they fired their defensive coordinator.
They did, which was coming, even though the Packers defense actually played well the last couple of weeks.
Right.
But yeah, they fired their coordinator, which all the Packers fans wanted to happen. So good, good for them. But again, like I said at the start of talking about this game, like that game was over, and like, wait a minute, how did the 49ers win this game?
Right.
Like, so they didn't look good, and in particular, Brock Purdy did not look good, especially the first 3 quarters. So he obviously was struggling with the rain, which I guess all quarterbacks do to some degree. It just seemed to be worse for him. He was not wearing a glove, then he was wearing a glove.
Because he's calling signal, like the shotgun snap's coming, and he's like
exactly
wiping off his right hand on his pants. I guarantee he would go to the sideline every time in the first 3 quarters of that game and be like, "Who'll stop the rain?" Because he did not. He
did
was
not look
off.
comfortable.
He was
sure.
But then on that last drive,
he was 7 for 7.
Yeah.
And did Purdy like things, and he ended up with like 278 yards passing or something. So all in all, not a bad night. But the thing that I was going to say this at the outset, but it was so game related that I'll wait until now. But the criticism of Purdy was kind of like over the top, and I think, and I heard someone else break it down this way. I think it's because everyone, all the NFL, personnel people, all the analysts, they all got it wrong. Because he's obviously a good quarterback,
so
system aside and all that bullshit. So anytime he stumbles a little bit, they have to jump on all over it.
So to justify their decision.
Exactly.
Say he's no good.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's just like, if Aaron Rodgers had that game, like no one would have been quite early in his career, any point in his career, no one would have been questioning, like, is he a system quarterback? Is he this? Is he that? But anyway, it just made me laugh, like everyone piling on just because he couldn't throw in the rain for 3 quarters.
I think it's picked up in the last 3 days, right? Like really the criticism.
Yeah.
So how many quarterbacks, in the history of in the NFL, one, they have a a clutch fourth quarter drive to win the game.
Right.
Right. Team has a great record.
Yep.
They're a 1 seed. Correct.
Yep.
And just gets nothing but criticism all week about it.
It is
where everyone else is. That's a great story. Oh, it's a great. Oh, it's C.J. Stroud. Oh, Jordan Love.
Right, because he's CG again. C.J. Stroud played statistically worse than Brock Purdy did this week.
They don't like the fact that he's become Mr. Relevant.
Exactly. I mean, it's just kind of weird to me. It almost makes me think like he's quietly like a dick or something, and we just don't know it yet or something. Like, I don't know, but he appears to be a nice guy and all that. And
clearly he has to work hard if he's the last pick of the NFL draft.
I just thought it odd to see like so many people pile in like, well, see, we told you it was just a system quarterback as soon as it's that perfect conditions. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Most quarterbacks, unless Josh Allen wouldn't struggle when the ball's wet, right? Because his hands are probably 4 times bigger than everyone else's. It's like him throwing a tennis ball. It's not going to slip out of his hands.
Exactly. So the key to this game, for the Niners going forward is Deebo Samuel got hurt in this game, and he's 50-50 for next week. So that pulling that one piece out of their system, I'll go to that for a second, is like it's like more than just one piece. You know what I mean?
It's like 3 possessions. It's like a tight end, a running back,
and then all the other pieces are less utilized, or whatever you want to say. So anyway, that's something to watch for next week. But you got to say again, talk about teams ahead of schedule. I hate that term, as we've talked about, but anyway, Packers are at least a year ahead of schedule as well. They had a first-time starting quarterback. They won a playoff game. They certainly took what's arguably one of the best teams in the NFL to the ropes and should have won the game. Didn't. But they got to be feeling good about what's going on.
Dude, their group of receivers are studs.
Yeah, and everyone gave that a hard time for a
just
while.
Because Watson dropped the first ball that Rodgers threw.
And because, again, none of them were drafted in the first round. They're all like 3rd and 4th round picks and all of that. So, but they carry 8 receivers on their 53-man roster. I find that amazing, and they all
get catches in the game. Like they all get targeted, they all make a catch.
They all contribute. It's like it's pretty crazy when you think about it.
So, what do you think Rodgers thinks? Like, is he like, oh God, I fucked up?
I think, yeah, probably. Probably.
I mean,
was he on McAfee this week or not?
I don't know. Like he was off, then he was on, then he was off, then he was on. I don't think he was, because it would have showed up in the New York Post.
Exactly. Showed up everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about it.
So, he'll show up next week because the Chiefs are still playing.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, Deebo, like, that's a big thing. Deebo, that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, it is. All right, we can get to next week's game in a second.
And it's supposed to not, I did hear it's not supposed to rain, so they won't be able to shit all over Purdy.
Right, he'll throw
like if he can grip the ball.
All right, so one of the next 2 games are probably, well, they're all good, but the games on Sunday, but Bucks 23 at the Lions 31, which isn't really reflective of how this game went. It was a really good game for 3 quarters. I think it was tied 17-17 at the end of 3 quarters. And then Jamar Gibbs ran for a 31-yard touchdown. I think the Bucks went out 3-and-out, and then Goff hit St. Brown, and all of a sudden it was 31-17. But that, again, that environment in Detroit, it was
crazy.
You got to root for that team at this point, man.
The only, like, everybody in America outside of the Bay Area, has to be rooting for Detroit. Like I even joked to Kaylee. I talked to her on Sunday night. I'm like, should I go on NFL.com and order my Goff jersey, or should I just wait till right? And what was I going to say about that? That Gibbs brother.
Yeah.
Does he collect royalties on the Saturday Night Live album or Saturday Night Fever album?
I don't know.
Like, is he related to?
I don't even get the reference.
Is Andy Gibb, Morris Gibb? You know,
I don't know.
Night Fever, Night Fever.
He's a long lost.
Andy Gibb,
very long lost.
He's the most athletic of them.
That's for sure. All right, on that topic, I mean, and I
that dude runs like a freight train,
man.
You talk about like, running downhill.
But not only that, just has like another gear that runs it. It's very unusual to see an NFL game where there's one player that's like by the just normal eye test is markedly quicker and faster than everyone else in the field.
In regular speed, like
Exactly.
during the play where you're like, this motherfucker's fast. Like he runs downhill running uphill.
Exactly. It actually, like the first time I saw OBJ live when he was playing for the Giants, I had the same reaction. So that puts him in a pretty high class. This is 2 ACLs ago, but like he was faster and quicker than everyone on the field, and like that's the way I feel about Jahmyr Gibbs. He's like that quick and that fast.
There was one dude in Alabama, like in the mid '80s, Jelks, I think his name was. Could it have been G Jelks? I don't know what his name was. Last name was Jelks. But I was watching an Alabama game. It was no HD. These were Cathode Road, whatever they are. Yeah. You know the old school TVs.
Yes, I do.
And watching him, he caught a punt and made a turn and went up the sideline. And watching it in real time, I was like, I've never seen fucking anyone that fast.
Right. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up because on that 31-yard touchdown run, that's what happened. He just he got the ball, he got one block and he was just gone. No one touched him.
And by the way, if he doesn't outrun somebody and there's somebody waiting for him at the goal line,
yeah, he'll run him over.
He's going to throttle it up and run you over.
So the Lions, so the Lions went up 31-17. Bucs scored a touchdown, gave the kind of very similar to last week's game. They gave the ball back to the Lions. Bucs went for 2, so it was 31-23. Obviously, that's the way the game ended. But which can we talk about that at some point? Like, I don't understand the going for 2 when you're down 2 touchdowns. Like it happens all the time. But and there's some analytical thing that says you're not guaranteed to make 2 extra points, so you should at least go for it. And then if you make it, then you can win the game with 1 extra point, and the odds are kind of in your favor or some bullshit like that. But
the analytic
doesn't make any sense to me.
There's a couple of things going on, I think. Either one, there's no more kickers. And I kind of saw a little bit of that this weekend.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I don't know that there's punters. And with all the analytic shit, because every time they come out, they go for 2 or they go for it on 4th down.
Right.
Tirico, happy shit, comes out with analytics say 54%. Go for it. 54%.
Exactly.
With the game on the line in the playoffs, I don't know if that's such a no-brainer.
Exactly.
And if that's what we're going to do,
why do we have a head coach?
Right? Let's just have AI coach the team.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
it came up. That happened so many times this year, and when it first happened, I'm like, why would they go for 2? It makes no sense. And apparently, if you going for 2 is 55% making it, and by that measure, you should go for 2 every time, right? Because then you'll get.
Well, what if it's 51%? You go for it every time.
Anyway,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
55% is not that.
I know, and then it's 95% to make 2 extra points in a row or something. This was the explanation. Again, none of it makes sense to me, but so therefore you go for 2, so you know what you need to do on the next drive.
You got to go for 2 again and not get it,
right?
And then you lose the game.
Exactly. So it didn't make any sense to me. Anyway,
but I give Baker credit for getting that. So they get that drives them down the field to make it a 1-score game. Somebody on the radio I heard say oh yeah, you got to admit Baker showed a lot of. And it's this is the oldest school term. This might be out of the 50s. And I agree, though. He showed a lot of moxie.
Yes, he did. He has plenty of moxie. That's for sure.
I mean, he played a good game.
He did. So he drives up. They go down 21-23. The Lions get the ball back, and it's kind of the same thing as last week. You're like, all right, they're going to run the clock out because they got it back with 4 minutes ago against the Rams or whatever. And they didn't. The Bucs D held, and they gave the ball back to Baker.
Were you shocked that Dan Campbell ran out the punt team? I know they were only on their 27-yard line.
No, it wasn't. It would have shocked me the other way, but it would have.
Well, I was mildly surprised. That dude don't like punting.
Exactly. Dan Gamble. We ever use that? I heard that.
We haven't.
I thought we came up with that. Jesus Christ, how did we come up with Riverboat Ron and never came up with that?
Yeah, wow. They're asleep at the wheel.
Dan Gamble.
They snuck up on us.
Exactly. And then Baker, and we'll talk about Baker in a second, but then he gets the ball back and he throws a pretty bad interception, which was the second of the game. But he threw for 360 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that guy gave the Buccaneers everything and more for a 1-year, $7 million deal.
I think it was only 4, 7 with incentives.
Yeah, maybe a 7 with incentives.
Yeah, but he's going to get a bag now. Like they're going to have to re-sign him.
You got to think so, right? I mean, how do you look at your fan base and say, nah, we're gonna go a different direction?
And then the other thing is he threw 2 picks, but the first one was that's on Mike Evans.
Yeah, that exactly.
Right.
So, yeah, exactly.
But Mike Evans had a fucking monster game.
Yeah, he did. So Mike Evans is like,
is he 40?
Like
he's an old dude.
Like when you start talking about the best receivers in the NFL, his name never fucking comes up, and it's kind of amazing. All he does is every single year gets like 1,400 yards and 1,400 yards, 100 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 10 TDs every fucking year. It's like
he made catches in that game that were like off the charts.
Yeah, no, he's
off the hizzle.
Anyway, so the Buccaneers have some work to do because he's a free agent.
Right.
Baker's a free agent. They, I think, are over the cap. I don't know, but so they have some work to do in the offseason. But before we get to their offseason or finish that thought, can you explain to me what Todd Bowles was thinking on the last Lions drive? So Baker throws the interception. There is, I think, 2 minutes left, and the Bucs have a timeout. And
did they get the 2-minute warning yet?
I'm trying to remember exactly
right.
Anyway, they had a timeout where if he took it and they stopped him, they would have got the ball back with like 30 seconds left, and he didn't take the timeout. And they asked him afterwards, and he was like, "Well, the game is over." And
like he was white flagging it.
Exactly. I'm like, well, not really.
So he took one of those white flags that all 70,000 people in the stands had.
Exactly. So it didn't make any sense, but like literally I don't know. It just was odd to me. I'm not saying they would have won the game or anything, but they absolutely would have got the ball back, and probably with like 30 seconds left, and who knows where the ball would have been. You never know, right? But Mike Evans and fucking speedsters and everything else. Anyway, so that was an odd coaching decision.
That catch Evans had like down the left sideline, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was Baker's left side. We had a dive, and he almost rolled into the end zone and like caught it off the turf. Was just like a phenomenal catch.
Just making sure we had power for the rest of the podcast.
How we doing on the power?
Now we're okay. All right, so Bucs have some work to do in that season, but they do have to bring Baker back, I think.
Seriously, he earned it.
Yeah.
But I did notice his shield, or whatever you want to call it, we'll call it a shield that you put on your helmet. It's kind of got like a tint to it, like a rose-colored tint. I noticed watching the game. Usually, everyone else's are either clear or totally dark.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing with that.
Must be the white. Some moxie. What do you want me to say?
He's gonna. Hey, I'll tell you what. Next year, we're gonna see the caveman. They made a punchline out of me, and Baker living he's gonna be at the big sombrero. Baker's gonna be at the big sombrero.
He's gonna be at the big sombrero on the pirate ship.
He's gonna be on the pirate ship. Grilling burgers for everybody.
Welcome back, Baker.
We'll have a documentary on Progressive and Geico.
All right, so let's go.
Along with, there's going to be an infomercial on how to check your A1C.
We'll be right on that. Him and Travis Kelce. All right, so so the marquee matchup of the weekend was, by all accounts.
Before we get to that, though, dude, I'll be bummed if Detroit doesn't win this game.
All right, we're gonna get into the
next no, but I'm just saying, like, hey, they played a good. How about Goff's touchdown? Like you got to root. How did you not root for him?
No, you do, and like again, so I meant to say this earlier, but so Dan Campbell, when he gave him the game ball last week, he basically said, quote unquote, he said, "You're good enough for Detroit," which is because he was, wasn't good enough for LA, and they did the trade, and it worked out well for LA, obviously, but. And he was an afterthought, as we kind of talked about last week. But yeah, he's good enough for Detroit. I think they got to extend. I don't know if he's in a contract year, but they're going to extend him, and they're going to pay him $40+ a year.
Yeah,
so it's like crazy.
I was just surprised, like unlike some other teams who we're about to get to, no cameos of Eminem or Kid Rock. Apparently, neither one of them were at the game, which was surprising.
Yeah, there was very lack of star power in Detroit.
But that's all right, man.
That's the way Detroit rolls.
That's grit. GRIT, brother.
All right. So on to the marquee matchup.
Here we go.
Chiefs went into Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park. It was 27-24. Chiefs won the game, which you all know by this point. And you know what? I think everyone outside of Kansas City was kind of rooting for the Bills in this one. I
Yep.
mean, you just how much heartache can the team have? And the Chiefs have put them out three out of the last 4 years. So kind of didn't want to see that again. Again, if you're just rooting with your heart or whatever. And this game was amazing. It was like at one point there was I think 6 ties or lead changes in like less than a quarter.
Right. There were great plays and there were fumbles all over the fucking place.
Right. And the thing, so I can go. So let me go through just what happened in the game, and then we can cover all our color commentary. So,
should I call you Jim? Like, could I be Tony and just go, Jim? It is Jim. You're not gonna believe this.
So, the KC scored on, I want to say 5 out of their first 6 possessions, but the first 2 of those they scored field goals. And if you remember last week in Miami, they scored practically every drive, but couldn't. They had 5 field goals.
Yeah, that Buckner, as we joked about, like he's gonna need surgery.
Exactly, he's losing
that fucking leg's gonna fall off.
So you kind of thought like, all right, here we go again. The Chiefs can't score in the red zone, and the Bills will take advantage of that. So Bills went up 10-6. Then Mahomes hit Kelsey for his first of his 2 touchdown passes to go up 13-10. He did the
heart.
He did the heart. He blew a kiss to Taylor and blah 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 blah. But I will say that you have to give credit where credit's due. So Mahomes and Kelsey passed Gronk and Brady for the most postseason.
And Montana and Rice.
Yeah.
Which okay, so can we just
you can pause there.
Put a, what do you call it, sparking button for 1 second and put a thumbtack in it, and we'll get back to it. I've had this thought for the last couple of weeks as we read about all these records being broken. When we were growing up, it was 14 game schedules.
Right. No,
and you played 2 playoff games. Like, so, hey, they passed Montana and Rice. Give me a fucking break. How many more games have they played?
Right. Yeah,
now, part of that is making it into the playoffs, right?
Yeah, so
it's just a lot more.
You see how many it is over how many games and all that. Yeah, but it's still impressive. I mean,
no, it is. No, for sure. And how does he get so open? Kelsey, like on that touchdown pass.
Listen, they do have whatever you want.
A scheme.
They have a connection that he just, and he finds like the openings, and if you play zone against him, he plays opening in zone. If you play man against him, who's going to cover him? You're not going to cover him with maybe a safety, but he'll probably run. I don't know. Anyway, he's a tough matchup. And then before halftime, Josh Allen did Josh Allen things. He ran a bunch of times and he scored a 2-yard rushing touchdown. So it was 17-13 at halftime. So right there were 2 lead changes. Then they come out of halftime. KC scores another touchdown. I think it was Kelsey again.
Yeah,
for his second
he had
touchdown.
2, right?
Exactly. So that was 2017. Then the Bills drove down the field. Shakur caught a 13-yard touchdown pass, so that was 24-20. And then the KC drove down the field. So defenses weren't playing at all.
Right.
And Pacheco scored a touchdown 27-24.
And that Pacheco, by the way, dude, it doesn't appear to me that he's a big dude.
Oh, dude.
And by the way, he's a Rutgers guy, University of New Jersey.
Yes, he is.
He runs as hard as Andy Gibbs' brother in Detroit.
Maybe harder. He doesn't have the speed at all.
But when it's like a second and goal situation from 2 or 3, he's
know when you tackle.
He's looking for you. He runs like Earl Campbell. He's a third of his size.
So that made it 27-24, and then the game got really weird. Defenses kind of started playing, so the Bills got the ball back, went 3 in almost out. They got in punt formation, and then
this was the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
And by the way, Kansas City only had 10 men on the field, and they ran a fake punt at their own 29, I think, or something, and didn't get it.
To Damar Hamlin. I get everybody loved Damar, but is that the right play call there?
So there was speculation, which I haven't heard any follow up on, was that was an audible that they saw 10 men on the field and called it.
Who audible? Who makes that call? Damar?
Probably Damar.
He's like, I haven't been on the field since they fucking took me off in the ambulance. People are going to know I'm here.
Exactly. And then again, the game got even weirder from this point. So then the Chiefs drove down the field. And then McCole Hardman, in my least favorite rule in all of the NFL,
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
fumbles the ball, which could have been maybe at the 6-inch line, but kind of like ended up at the.
It dribbled around
Exactly.
the pylon.
So if it's at the 6-inch line, it's the Chiefs' ball at the
At the
6-inch line. Because it rolled an extra 9 inches, the Bills get the ball at 20. Dumbest fucking rule ever.
Clearly the dumbest rule. Bills got bailed out, and if you compare that to the first, it was Josh Allen's fumble. The first fumble on their first drive. What's the tight end's name? Dawson Knox.
Yeah.
Like he literally dove on the ground and just punched it out of bounds. Like I didn't even think I thought you couldn't do that anymore.
You can
apparently,
but it only you can't.
You can't advance it. You can't advance it.
Yeah, you can.
So you could punch it out at the 45 and keep the ball, but when you're on the 6-inch yard line, and if it happens to roll past the pylon, you lose the ball. Shouldn't they just get the ball back at the 6-inch yard line? Or even if they were at the 3 when it started, shouldn't they get it at the 3?
Or give them the ball at the 20, but the fact that the other team gets the ball at 20 doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Right. So so the Bills got bailed out with that.
Yeah. So then, but again, then strangely in this game, the defenses kind of took over. Then there was 3 punts in a row, I think. The Bills got the ball back, did drive down the field. And then Josh Allen, and you got to love the way he approaches the game. It's always like, push it to the limit kind of thing.
Right.
But they were in Chiefs territory. He tried to hit Diggs on like a 40-yard bomb, which Diggs should have caught, by the way.
Right. He didn't have a great game, I don't think, Diggs.
No, not at all. And then the next play, Diggs was wide open, but Josh threw it into the end zone, setting up a field goal.
But he kind of got hit. Like I think a defensive lineman kind of bumped his
that's right.
His offensive lineman into him, and so that he didn't have his usual mustard on the ball.
Yeah, that is right. But again, he's throwing a 40-yard pass when he could have.
Right, but Diggs was open. If he had a clean pocket, it was a touchdown.
No.
Okay. We're talking about a different one. Okay.
Diggs was open in a flat.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
Anyway, that set up a field goal from Bass, and who hasn't had a great postseason. He missed 2 field goals last week. Gets up there to hit a 41-yarder, and the wind was blowing. But again, he went wide right, which is the last words that any Bill fan ever wants to hear. But so the Bills, instead of inventing new ways to lose, are just recycling old ones.
I wrote a note somewhere, and I must have had a different book. Because I don't know where the fuck it is, but or maybe I texted it to you and Mike. I thought the Giants have own heartbreaking ways to lose games, big ones or little ones or whatever. But I mean, the Bills totally. When your divisional playoff game ends, where you finally got the Chiefs at home, and they're showing highlights of Scott Norwood in the Super Bowl.
Something went wrong
with just a single, the Joe Theismann bar, and Everson Walls is fucking jumping up and down for the Giants. Shit went south.
Yeah, so
and that kick wasn't even close. I mean, it was as if a nor'easter came through and started blowing from left to right in that stadium.
And then the Chiefs get the ball back and run the clock out, and they're on to the AFC Championship for the 8th straight time, something like that, something crazy.
Dude, I think I wrote. What did I write that? What they say. Since Mahomes has been a starter, he's never not played in a conference championship game.
Yeah, so that's
6 in a row for him.
Right,
now they played in ones before that, right?
But not right.
But 6 conference championship games in a row.
Yeah,
I didn't look it up. That's got to be unheard of.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I don't think Brady did that. He's been starting for 6 years. This is not over a course of a 15-year career.
He is. I mean, and we can get into all right. I think everyone. I'm not sick of him as much as I was sick of Rodgers, but it's getting close. I gotta say, his shtick is getting a little old for me. I love the Bills were Bills fans were pelting him with snowballs at the end of the game. So
right.
Kind of gotta love that for Bills fans. But anyway, and then he tried to say well, I just looked at playing a road playoff game as a challenge, which is all right. I get that. But then he's like, "But you guys never bring this up. But we played a road playoff.
Oh,
game.
yeah.
we played the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay." I'm like, "Shut up."
But he said, like, I don't like bringing it up because we lost, right? But yeah, if it's not during an NFL game, if it's not a hot flash or A1C commercial,
yeah,
then it's him with Subway. It's him at AAA or State Farm. Most valuable bundler.
Yeah, exactly.
He gets but to his credit, he gets Andy Reid involved.
Yeah, and
I saw
who doesn't need any help getting it.
Right. I saw a new one today with Subway. Like they got the footlong sub, and now they have a footlong chocolate chip cookie. So just you talk about everyone's A1C level. I think just going right the fuck up.
They should go right to the A1C commercial.
So Holmes is like, oh, and he shows the cookie, the footlong cookie. And he's like, oh, this is my new favorite partner. And then the camera goes over to Kelsey, like.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't leave this game without talking about Jason Kelsey. So
yeah, I was. If you didn't get to that, I was getting to that.
So Jason Kelsey, obviously Travis's brother, who is rumored to be retiring, looked like he was on his retirement party too.
I assume he's retiring based on that performance.
So there's videos of him all over the place, but he was in Bill's Mafia land doing shot skis
out of the bowling ball.
Exactly, right? Out of the bowling ball.
Have you ever done that at a Bills game?
I have not. No, I have not. And then you go into the game, and I think he's shirtless immediately. I don't know. I never saw him with a shirt on in the game. And at one point, he jumps out of the stands and chugs a beer with, I guess it was a Kansas City fan. I don't even know, but he chugs a beer with them, hops back into the thing. He's yelling the whole time. He gets a little girl to make sure Taylor looks at him. So I actually gained a lot of respect for Jason.
Right.
During this whole thing.
He was engaging everybody, but he was shirtless every time I saw him.
Yeah, he was.
Like Kelsey's first touchdown, like we'll get to Taylor Swift, but like he's just in the back of that suite,
right?
Totally shirtless. He's got fur all over him. Sure does. But I did read something where he said, I must have drank 40 Bud Lights. So the thing I took away from that quote was, how much longer till he shows up in a Bud Light? Because now he got paid. Yeah. You know, they're going way against the woke advertising deal. Like we got paid in Emmitt Smith. Kelsey's going to show up in a. Yeah, I would agree. He was pitching that idea.
So all right, so the Bills. I mean, they have some work. They have all sorts of salary cap issues. Every team does at this point, but. I'm like, everyone's like their window's closed. This is all. No, it's not. They got Josh Allen as quarterback. Like, right. I mean, they got one of the top. I don't know, top 5 at least. I mean, you can argue if it's top 2 or top 3, but certainly top 5. And I mean, they're not going away. And by the way, everyone forgets this, but injuries are part of the game. Blah blah blah. But they were so depleted in their defense that
right.
That it was hard. They were hard, and they kind of showed in the game. They couldn't stop them until the very end. But I'd say the arrow's at least sideways for the Bills and not pointed up still. But,
well, dude, they've been playing the playoff games for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah,
right. Because what were they, 5-5 or whatever?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
They were 6-6.
Okay, 6-6, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, they're fucking snake bit.
Yeah, they will invent ways to lose again next year. But anyway.
But I also have to say, like, okay, so the first touchdown, the heart, the blow a kiss. This whole thing is bullshit. Like, we're all being scammed. That's my first thought. Right. Like, and maybe that's a bring in young ladies to the NFL fans.
I was on that conspiracy theory in week 3, man.
Because even the most diehard fans, like the guy in Detroit who's had season tickets for like 65 years that they keep showing.
Yeah,
they score a touchdown. He's fired up.
Right.
He's not like.
Well, he doesn't have a.
Like,
first of all, can't move like that, and second of all, he doesn't have a billion fucking YouTube followers.
All right, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's also, I wonder if there's like a director in those suites. Like saying, okay, here's what we do. Lights on. Now
lights on. Let's do this.
And like old Brittany Mahomes, you talk about somebody gravy training like a motherfucker.
Jesus.
Right?
Yeah, so that's why you got to root against the Chiefs. I mean, I have been for a while, but because I'm tired of that as well. But all right, let's go to next week's game.
I know, but I do like Mahomes. I mean, you're growing sick of him, but Mahomes, like, I mean, when he gets interviewed, he's pretty hot. I mean, that comment, you took it as like, hey, we did play a road game, but I as he finished it when he said,
Yeah.
"Hey, but we lost. I don't like to talk about it." Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. I guess it's.
I mean, I don't need to sell you on it.
It's kind of like the whining and like crying about calls and all that.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Okay.
All right. So.
But he is the first one to bring the Parkas back.
Yes, it's true.
So. And still, no dad. No Kelsey dad in the suite. I don't even think the mom was there. She saw her son and was like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here." He's off the chunky commercials.
All right, next week's games, the championship weekend, man. Chiefs at the Ravens. Ravens are favored by 3.5. Every bone in my body says the Ravens win this game, maybe easily, but based on what we just said, I'm picking the Chiefs, man.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs. Did we look at how we did last week? You don't even remember.
I did not do well because I lost money. So
okay.
I did not do well. I think I was 1-3 last week. I don't know. I'm going
to take the Chiefs.
Until
they lose, I'm not going to bet against them.
I reserve the right to change my mind before I put money on it, but I think I just something weird about the Chiefs right now. I don't know. Again, conspiracy theories might be factoring into my decision here a little bit, but wouldn't they love to have Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl? I mean, come on. Just
you make a good point. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, come on.
So you think the NFL might be in on the fix?
I'm just saying, it just seems a little like it's gone that direction in a hurry. But
what do you think's going to be on the back of the helmets? Well, not the Chiefs because they don't put it. They buy that fucking Ralph's brand, the generic helmets where they don't say anything. But like, is it going to be Be Love or
I don't know.
One Love or You're the Solution or whatever the fuck?
All right, Lions are traveling.
But is Ray Lewis going to be there? He'll have to be there, right? He might lead the team out.
I'm sure he'll
with
be
that
doing
big dance.
And all of it. Whatever. Yeah. He's a murderer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Allegedly.
He's going to be. He'll be out. He does that dance because he's out. You know what he's yelling when he's doing it? I beat the rap.
All right, Lions are going into whatever we called it earlier.
We called it candlestick at Santa Clara.
The new candlestick at Santa Clara is, and the Lions are 7-point underdogs. I don't understand, especially if Debo's not playing. I don't understand that. I'm not saying the Lions win the game, although it wouldn't surprise me. But I think the Lions are a team of destiny. They're going to play it tough. They always play tough. I don't see them being scared about San Francisco. I don't see San Francisco like intimidating them, dominating. At least keep it close. I think the Lions win that game.
Yeah, you don't think Dan Campbell's gonna be scared? He's not scared of going in that fucking place. No. I'll say it's the Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Detroit. I'm picking Detroit. I'm picking them to win the game because I want them. That's what my heart.
Yeah. Because
it'll be a Super Bowl, much like that year when you became a Saints fan.
Everyone would be on the Lions. Man.
Like everyone, we're all bad. We'll have grit T-shirts on. You wouldn't think
I'll be playing Kid Rock.
Right. You wouldn't think we grew up in Detroit. This is my hometown. Whatever that tune is.
Oh man! All right, so that's what we got for you this week, fellas. You want to clear your notebook,
fellas and ladies, man. Let's be inclusive. All right, let's be inclusive. Hey, there's 1 million sideline reporters out of them. 999,000.
Yes,
bottles of beer on the wall, and are all sideline reporters.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, I know we have. But I'm saying we're not just fellas.
Just hire a 56-year-old male. That's all I got to say. Wait,
right, just one. Then I think we have diversity.
My resume's in the mail. All right.
Well, they need to execute and not turn the ball over. Well, thanks, Maddog.
Thanks, Coach. All right, guys. We got it next week. Championship Sunday. Watch and listen and subscribe and all that.
Send it to send it to any friends you have that would be willing to subscribe. Like, what is it? On YouTube, subscribe. On Spotify, it's follow.
All right.
Right? Yeah, I think that's it.
Click the button.
Just click one of those buttons. Hopefully you listen and get some laughs out of it. If not, just hit one of the buttons.
Hit the button. All right, guys.
All right. See you next week. Go Lions.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. And follow us on social media to stay in the loop with all things Maddog and Pino. Until next time, keep those ice cubes jiggling.